What is a black site? Black site is a place like the Oregon State Hospital. That's where everything about what happened there is classified. It's a place where surveillance shows up and is used. It's secret. It's a place where they might have military operations going on. That place is both, but nobody knows the extent. Um, it's a hospital for one thing, and then it's also a prison, and it's next to a prison as well. It's one of the most secure locations in Oregon. I've been told that by staff there, that it's so secure that nobody can penetrate that place. And it's got a secret defense system. And the military could be called in. And they're probably watching it. And, well, when you have these prison inmates, you have these programs that go on. You have the military-industrial complex. What they've done to people in these prisons before is gain access. They got access to them, I guess, whenever they want them. And they're subjected to things that are secretive, and it can involve killing a person. It can involve drugs. It can involve information. Nobody really tracks that, because when it's done, it's not tracked. It's covered up. A victim or a witness would be discredited very easily. But at the state hospital, and there's also experiments going on. Long history of choosing people in prison to target. I think that the general public is more actually worth more than a prison inmate, though, because if you can experiment on some of the general public, well, they have freedom and they move around, and you have much more that you could do with them, and much more that you could do to them, and less people watching, less due process as well, so there's less protection. You can carry out a live military operation on a targeted citizen anymore and do all sorts of stuff, and you have the local hospital involved, you have the local police involved, and no one's going to say anything, and so then only the victim might actually know what's going on. So you're not going to get any information if you go and you want to investigate this unless somebody slips up. So this is a black site. And these black sites, you got secret stuff going on. And very organized people doing things. And it can involve any amount of organizations or groups of people in the government doing it. So there's no specific agency. A victim would not know who was doing it. Because there's a lot of overlap in the agencies, and they all kind of do different, similar things, and they all have the capability. So, and they're also sharing systems, access. So, that's all true. But then there's surveillance going on, right? So at the state hospital, this black site, it's under investigation by the DOJ, but it's not really, okay? It ain't really under investigation. DOJ comes in, I don't know what they do there, but the whole place is being locked down, and it's all I really know is what the surveillance was used there for. To target me, to target patients. And we were just being spied on. And it's the government spying on Americans as if they could use all their technology to spy on Americans. And it's building penetrating. And it's interferometry. It's coming from space. It's coming from radar. And it's really the highest tech stuff that they have. And it ain't really secretive because there's patents and whistleblowers out there who have disclosed information about its use. They have brain decoding technologies. And they focus energy right through a big building into the middle of it. And they're recording the air molecules. They're recording people. Energy's reflecting off their bodies and through their bodies. And this is actually creating a very high resolution image from space of inside that building. And like the walls are transparent, right? In certain frequencies. So what you have is that, in light frequencies, sure, that looks like a wall on me, but in other frequencies, apparently it's not a wall. It's this transparent object that can be seen through. And our damn government has everyone under surveillance with this stuff. But, and this is not unique to one site, it's all over the place. But what happens when you get mixed up and you anger someone, or you become a target, or someone wants to do something secretive to you, they could do it. And that's what they did to me. And the staff members were in on it. You have these violent state employees. They control the police, they control the local judges, they control the local government. They could have the governor replaced if they wanted to, because they slander him in the media and stuff, and they threaten him. They got resources all over the state. You piss somebody off in their group of people, you're targeted statewide. Your family's being targeted. They're being harassed. You're being abused at every level. And amongst the law enforcement, their one duty is to enforce the law, but they won't do it. The Supreme Court's decided they're not supposed to protect people, they're supposed to enforce the laws, right? And if they're supposed to enforce the laws, they're supposed to do so indiscriminately. And they're supposed to, even be willing to arrest whoever, the governor or the president, or, a state employee, or a bunch of, but they won't do it. They're actually secretly not enforcing the law, and they use what's called plausible deniability, and they use this, their secret, that they can, because no one actually knows that they have this system when it comes to the general public, but some of them do. Some of them do. Some of them are actually very tied into government and these unions and the police and the infrastructure. So some of them do have access. And you have doctors and different levels and stuff going on. Maybe, I don't know how it works, but it's been there. You can look up MK Ultra. They've done all this type of crap before. So, and routinely, ever since these programs began 70 years ago, they've always been running some type of new program. There's all sorts of programs and operations, always. And then government funding stuff, research and development, and buying stuff, selling stuff. Doctors giving grants to do things. That is what their system is. And today our military has all this the police. The police have all this military technology, right? They got armored cars, they got sound wave and directed energy weapons locally. Then they tie into these databases and information from the military. They're past secretive information about taxes, and they know that you have contact with a known drug dealer. They got all your calls are being tracked, your movements are being tracked, your cell phone's helping. They also have satellites. Um, and so these satellites, and then this ground-based radar. The ground-based radar confirmed to work like this, bouncing in radiation off the sky down into a person's location for remote scans and attacks and assaults. And there's a program called Operation Pick. That's my favorite program now, because the CIA back in 1978 confirmed using this technology to target Europeans and people in European nuclear bases, directing energy, bouncing radiation and microwaves down into their body from the sky, from ground-based devices and radar on the ground. That is something that's confirmed to alter their mental health and their health, and to do things to them and to hurt them. And the attack like that's able to work because where's the person when they're doing it? Where's the military or whoever's doing it? Well, they're very far away, hundreds of miles away, more than hundreds of miles away. So that type of attack is very sophisticated. But guess what? That technology is here in America, and it's able to do things. So we have police on the ground. They're trained to kill. They have all this military technology. They know everything we're doing, and then they find ways to persecute. That is what they're doing. They persecute people for the government with all this surveillance, and they're able to get information. They let people go, or they want to see them dead, or whatever. It's a risk. People don't know that they don't have freedom. That when they're doing something, they are nothing but an ant. Okay, they're an ant, and they don't have any power. And that everything they're doing is being watched and recorded, no matter what, 24/7. There is no true activism. There is no people who have power to overthrow the government. This fucking beast is locked down. And so what happens when they get caught doing any of this type of stuff? They'll do what they did to me. They'll target a person in very sophisticated manners to try to kill them. They try to kill me. They use directed energy. I'm at the hospital. And this technology, the same stuff that can spy on a person through the walls, is the same stuff that can attack a person with energy. They just got to focus that energy onto that person's body. Target and focus right inside of them. And then suddenly they're heating and chilling the person, creating vibrations. They're messing with their brain waves. These are all confirmed capabilities of microwaves and radiation and radio waves and terahertz waves. I'm tired of going on about it. I've been a target now for 6+ years. It's been over 6 years. Once they start up an attack, it's effortless because the people on the ground, they don't have to invest many resources. The system is all computerized, and it's got your body as a coordinate, and as you're walking around, it tracks where you move. Because they have satellites and radar, they do this. We're basically like airplanes. You know how airplanes are being tracked, and they can tell where an airplane is, and they can get a picture of it if they wanted to, from a satellite or something. Because everything is being watched and every physical object tracked. Just like also satellites up in space. They're tracking these objects, their image. Russia was just exposed. They launched some satellites, and they found, originally, what they did was they launched some satellites, and then they had one object that was secretive, launched with it, and it looked like space junk, but then it started maneuvering. And it's kind of like this. If you watch Star Wars, you know how they hid behind one of the Star Destroyers and then waited for the trash to be let out, and then they just drifted off and then started maneuvering again. Well, that's kind of like what Russia did. And so we were tracking this. It was just on Slashdot. And so we know that this is some type of satellite. And well, anyway, we could track things like that. And we're tracking everything. And the human beings can be tracked like that, their physical movements. And it's all classified. Just like an airplane. We know it's there. And we could get intelligence from it. We're reading the signals from the human body and the neurons. And we got, pulse rate. Oh, it's still alive. And it's thinking about how it's going to get some nachos at Taco Bell. Uh, you know, and then it's gonna go back. It's gonna fuck its girlfriend silly. They got that level of intelligence because they've learned how to decode the brain emissions so well, and they'll focus on specific parts of the brain, and it's very high resolution, and they're tracking the signals and how that works, and it's effortless. Their system was working like that. Police officers can have a signal beamed right into their brain. They're all trained to do that. It's just so classified. Most people don't know what's going on around them. That the officers, when they show up and they're as organized as they are, that they actually have this technology at their disposal. And it's all wireless, long range. So they're hooked up to this. And they don't even have technology in their body that indicates it. That's how sophisticated it is. So I like to call it Agent's earpiece. You know how in The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, they had earpieces and it was keeping them linked up, and they take it out if they didn't want to communicate with one of their fellow agents. Well, they have this technology, except they don't use an earpiece. It's a fucking satellite. It's a whole satellite network. It's decoding everyone's thoughts together. It's tracking their emissions. And the computer, it's really complex because you can go into the computer and search for things. And it's tracking everything all the time. That's what allows them to search these things. And I really don't know if it's going to be like a 24/7 thing on all areas, or if they have to call it in select areas when they want it. But it's there. As far as I know, it seems to be a 24/7 thing, especially if you're a target of some type of abuse. So you're never able to escape. You go out in the middle of the woods, it's still there and working. And the people who come under this electronic assault, that Operation Pick, that's the same thing all these people complaining about today who are talking about electronic assault and harassment are dealing with. It's a military force in America it's now targeting people. And because it's all automated, computerized, it's coordinates, where the frequencies are being beamed, and it's kind of like automated, just like look at the little thing behind a TV tube, directs energy to coordinates on a screen so that you could see an image. Well, it's kind of the same type of technology. It's just directing energy to coordinates in an automated fashion, just like a television light gun would do. It's that level. It's so easy. And nobody... So if everyone's in on it in the government, you have district attorneys and judges and police officers and U.S. attorneys and people in the military and these unions. Everyone's in on it. Presidents and governors and congressmen know it's there. If everyone knows it's there, nobody's freaked out about it. No one's concerned that it's there. There are a couple of congressmen, Jim Guest. There's another one. They've written letters about. There's very few of them, though. Help me fight this, Jim Guest said to one of the people that wrote to him. No one's going to speak out about it. And there's examples of this all over the place. If you watch C-SPAN and you watch Congress, you see them lying out their ass because they're putting on this fucking show. No, none of them are acting based on the knowledge that they have of these systems. And here's an example. Clapper, in 2013, he lies. He's at the Senate Intelligence Committee. Ron Wyden asks him about programs related to spying on Americans. We know that Ron Wyden knew that this program existed, that there was tapping of phones going on and metadata collection and telephone content and internet monitoring, all that. Clapper says something, I guess it was a flat out lie, and this was set Snowden off. Snowden claims that that comment was something that really stood out as a lie to him, which was why he blew the whistle. Clapper lies, and then Ron Wyden doesn't even call him out, knowing it's a lie. And I guess Ron Wyden was actually capable of calling him out, because I guess there's rules that protect senators and congressmen. They can bring whatever they want up, and it's not a crime. So if Ron Wyden knew this was going on, which is true, we know that, why didn't he call Clapper out on the lie when Clapper lies about spying on Americans? Because they're all in on it. They're all sitting there lying, and we're watching TV. We're hearing things. It's all a message to deceive us, and no one's telling the truth about it. And what kind of government is that, if that's what we're looking at? And so just picture that most people across America from state and federal government know that there's a system out there. It's been set up for decades doing this. And I'm going off my knowledge in Oregon, okay? In Oregon, I happen to know everyone involved. I don't know every single person, but I know the people that I was caught up with, and that what I saw in their institution. I know the police officers, you could polygraph them or fMRI them, they would fucking fail as a group. And I don't trust doing it just to one person. You got to do it as a group, and then you get all these people failing their polygraphs and fMRIs. And the fMRIs are not lie detection fMRIs, they're pulling out memories. That's what you want to do, pull out the memories from their brain of this stuff. And then you have the truth. So if everyone knows about it, and no one's doing anything, all the victims, there's lots of victims, really huge presence on Facebook, really huge presence on the internet. They've thousands of websites. They've been there. They've been on TV before. We've been on CNN in 1997. Back in 1997, they had these complaints. They just had so many complaints. The longer you go on, this movement, people saying, hey, I've been targeted with some type of energy, I've been getting assaulted, I know something about this. It's been there for decades. And I'm reading people's comments from the early 2000s, and I'm like, holy crap, these people, it sounds like there's some type of mass experimentation plot against these people. Because if you read each comment, you're hearing all these people complaining. Their comments are identical. They're together on it. And it's really sick and sad is that there's this huge suppressive movement against them. Nothing's ever done about it. No one investigates it. It's because it's not a secret. It ain't a secret what's happening. When you make so many complaints at first, you can assume maybe it's a secret. Maybe, or not a secret, but that they don't know about it. But then once it goes on so long, it becomes like, oh my God, there's no fucking way they don't know about this by now. And then you actually, you learn more about the system, and then there's a reason no one can get help. It's because nobody is going to do anything. Because certain people have been found to be disposable, I guess. And they could be targeted with this. Their rights don't matter. No one cares. Nobody gives a crap. And that's how they do this. And government's running this. I've read police reports that are so fucking fraudulent, and they also lie about everything. So in government, they're lying about every little detail. They're faking the books. The testimony's fraudulent. For example, on my website right now, I have several videos from October 29th. I posted this stuff. Police brutality videos. And the police are lying in their own reports to try to cover this up, and then the video exposes something else. That's what's going on. The police are literally lying in every police report. Everything that's on the record, everything being used in court, everything that Congress does, all these people are together lying. And that's why nothing is getting done. What happens when this is exposed? Luckily, or I don't even know. I think the police officer might have a high risk of getting fired. But that's because he fucking blew his own, cover by getting caught, by there being video that actually was there to show, or some audio that was able to show. In my case, there is audio and video. 2008, I was on several units where all these operations were taking place. And there's still not been a single person sit down and talk with me to get the full story, because I need help, man. I'm being tortured. And the government knows that they could just string me along and fuck me up so that I will lose focus, and that's what's happened 6 years of this shit. This could have been ended in 2011, because that's when I had attorneys. But the first attorneys, public defense guys, they're actually in on it. They protect the DAs. I know some stuff about these public defenders in Eugene, Oregon. And there's actually attorneys who are supposed to protect the public who won't do it. They won't go against it. They're not going to put their name on it. They're not going to release... God, it's serious, man. At the state hospital, they have advocates at Disability Rights Oregon who knew the technology existed, and no matter what happens to a person, they're not going to help. And there's something going on with that. It's crazy that you could be in existence and you have all these rights, and there's people out there who are supposed to help you. That's their duty. That's their job. They sign up to do it, and they don't do it. And they're actually in on all these covert things all the time. And there's flaws in our system that make it so that I don't even have the right to have my attorney do what I want. My attorneys have told me that. No, that's at our discretion, and I'm sitting there. So if it's at their discretion, they can choose what they want to do and all that shit. Well, they're able to actually abuse you for the state, knowing they're abusing you, and refuse to do things to help. So that's how I'm still a victim today. All this could have been exposed years ago. The information was out there to do it. The security vid at the state hospital is going to show me getting beat up on camera, and then there's going to be reports generated by the state police and OIT that are going to say that these things didn't happen, because they refused to prosecute any crime that I would ever report the staff doing. And it didn't matter how serious it was. And so early on, I now know how I got screwed, because there was always this movement against me and other people in the system. And so when I made a report, or if I had something going on where I was being abused, there was a reason I never got help. And it wasn't a mistake. And it's evidenced by how serious things got later on, and how they would go to all lengths to keep doing it. And one of my friends called it deliberate indifference. It's corruption, it's organized. And the security video would be there watching the staff do crimes, and no one would ever be checking it. Didn't matter if it was me or anybody else. And they have audio of their conversations of them discussing this technology being used at the hospital. they're beating me up on camera. They're discussing the state's lack of liability insurance, and that's why I'm being targeted, and that's why things are being covered up. And I was helpless. And then when the weapon was used on me, that was a way of lighting my nervous system on fire so that I could not defend myself anymore, and that I'd be there convulsing and freaking out and crippled, paralyzed, and have a denial of service on my nervous system done with this technology and all this stuff. So while it's covertly used for communication, like staff members actually have it. And you'll see them on camera and mics using this technology where they'll actually be getting communications together all as a group and then laughing out in the hallways and commenting on private things that they're not supposed to know about. And that's how I was trying to expose them. I sent emails. I got spoilage of evidence because those emails documented this going on. The security video would have showed it. Security audio would have showed it. And I was literally up against a force of people who had the power to do whatever they wanted. And they all realized, because of how serious it was, me trying to expose this, you had different people who were willing to go to all lengths at all levels to cover it up. And the most I could have done is try to sue. But then I would have been dealing with corrupt judges and stuff, and them throwing the case out if I tried to sue. So that's really something they do. So if I filed a habeas corpus in 2008, most likely, I would have risked the judges throwing it out without even checking into my situation. So that's how they actually get away with crimes. If you try to file a lawsuit over it, your claim's dismissed without any due process. No one's checking into any of it. And they'll come up with a lot of different excuses for why they're allowed to do that. And since, of course, I didn't know how to file one in 2008, but since then I filed several, and that's the way it turned out. They don't even look at the evidence. They're not interested in what's real and not. And I think it's a protection that the people have who are running these operations, that the judges will just, with knowledge of it actually happening, just dismiss your case. You know, who do you think all the warrants go through? The judges, if they get local warrant. And I also kind of suspect that the judges are kind of complicit with a lot of these programs. I mean, some people have said that the police keep it from the judges, and they don't tell that they've already been using surveillance. That's how they found something out about a person. Now they're going to get a warrant just so they could use. If they get a warrant, that lets them legally use this information in court, but they can obstruct how they actually got the information. So by using, they got like stingrays and they got all these methods. Well, I kind of don't think the judges are truly nodding on that. I think that maybe that what it protects when a judge decides, that violates the Fourth Amendment, that only actually protects in criminal prosecutions and stuff. You can have the charges dismissed if a violation can actually be discovered. It doesn't stop the government from spying, though. So they're going to do their spying. A judge, and his decision that they're not allowed to do that, only comes into effect if they bring charges or something against you. Or if you can actually manage to get the proof that says they did it, so you sue in civil court. But otherwise, it has no impact. They're still spying. They're going to keep doing it. So all the protections that our courts have, that we think the courts provide, aren't really there. It's not stopping them from spying on anybody. It's just preventing information from being used in a court in a certain manner. That's it. And the courts themselves there's no enforcement mechanism. The courts don't go into the NSA and take a look at what's happening, and then there's no enforcement. There's no manpower to enforce any decision made by any judge to make sure that anything's working the way the judge thinks it should be working. And they're also they're not like going in and taking a look at how it's actually working to verify that, there aren't people getting hurt, that there aren't methods going on that are just totally illegal, like 24/7 spying on every single person in their homes from satellites type stuff. And I'm not talking about satellite images where it looks like your house from space. It's going to look like they could see through the walls from space type shit. Okay? So I need to picture your house that they're trying to get. They're trying to get at what's inside the house. And I'm sure that that's one of their classified things, that they have they have an image of what the house looks like inside. They have blueprints of our homes saved. So that every freaking house, they know the layout. I'm going to die, and even if I survive, I'm already fucked up so much that they achieved their goal. I am microwaved to death, and I have swollen brain, swollen muscles, fucked up everything inside my brain. There's so many things that go inside a person's brain, and they need them to work. Language, styles of the world. For me to be able to sense what's even happening, if my brain, just because I can't even sense most of the fucking world anymore. Okay? The brain would normally inform you of certain ways to feel and insight on the certain things, and if your brain just gets beat up so much, it just stops. You don't have very much going on anymore. And think of your brain as a bunch of rooms, and you're keeping a constant state of everything you knew to exist, and all these different things inside your brain, emotions and feelings and whatever. And I seem to be operating with barely a single part of a single room working anymore. The reality that works in my brain is just a small part of what's supposed to be there. And if I can't keep a consistent state of the world anymore, if all I have is a small part of what I see, like if I'm holding up a bottle of orange juice, there are things that are supposed to be there, associations and memories of the past and things to help me see what the hell's going on. They've spent time to destroy that. They've broken down the pathways in my brain. My brain cannot even fathom most things anymore. There are so many different... I should have a brain that's dynamic, able to think about so many different things in different manners. But they broke all that down. I can't do it anymore. They beat it out of me. They fucked it up. There's no way to restore it. The damage that they've done is so severe. I'm forced to live as a fucking vegetable. They want me to just keep trying to recover, and I'm being tortured and beat with radiation. Fuck. And I'm like enemy of the state. That's why this is going on, because I witnessed stuff at the hospital. It was so outrageous and so severe. Everyone knew what they were doing was wrong. And it was from day one. I mean, fortunately, the whole legal system was set up to be a piece of shit. So, you got arrested, and even for my first time, I was just a kid, 19, I didn't even do anything. Well, you got a high chance of being abused and set up and falsely convicted and all that type of shit. And when these things are going on, no one's there to do their jobs good. I mean, look at the U.S. Department of Justice, what they uncovered at the state hospital. They covered up a lot of it, right? They don't have a report that actually highlights the most serious abuses there. They don't want to call them out on doing it deliberately and having violent staff, right? Um, they look at it, they're still looking at it's supposed to be a treatment facility when it's actually a state. The state has interest in doing things, right? They want to murder someone, they want to execute them, they want to lock them up in prison. Well, that's what they do, okay? The state has it, they'll defend it to no end. The district attorneys and the damn attorney generals, they want to see a person executed with the death penalty. They push through it for it so hard. The goddamn state loves that shit. Well, guess what? There's other systems in there. They look at it like this. The state is protected. Doesn't matter how many people they put in the prison. It doesn't impact them. They don't gotta care about who they put in there. No, they're not thinking about how society is to be respected and everyone has rights and is good. They're not thinking about that. They're wanting to kill people and lock them up in prison with maximum time, and it's the public being targeted like this. The government ain't. The government officers, the police officers, they shoot to kill people for no reason and don't go to prison. Okay, they use excessive forces. They use they're corrupt. They're running surveillance. They're doing military operations. They don't go to prison. It's just the sheeple, the public, the sheeple, are the ones being put in prison. And the state acts like they have an interest in doing all this at all costs. Well, there's also another system in place, and that is dispensing treatments to hurt people. So if they can't get a judge to say, yes, let's execute this person, well, they can use the medical system to hurt people. So they have doctors who, at the state hospital, if you get sent there, or if you're given drugs in a prison, that's a secret method of punishment and taking life and limb. So they'll give a chemical lobotomy or shock therapy with force, or they'll beat a person up, or they'll do something to hurt them. They'll give them a lobotomy, and they'll basically be a crippled person, and then they'll die young. That's what happens. And the system's been running this way for decades, and since forever. The state hospital has a whole bunch of urns that were discovered for people that died there. There are people being killed at this place, okay? And no one ever got justice. And the history of abuse in psych institutions, dude, what they do is beat people until they're ready to stop. And that's supposed to be treatment because it's behavioral modification or something. There's no such thing as treatment. This place is about controlling people who get put there. It's a prison, and then the state's interest is doing whatever they want to the person while they're there. Okay. The modern system has kind of been revised. They're supposed to not do this as much, but they were doing this like clockwork until they're still doing this, but they're not doing it quite as much because the state can't do it as much. There's less beds, there's less money. But when the old state hospital was there, that's all they did. There was nobody not just being punished and controlled and so a doctor who knows this, he knows he's got to do whatever the doctor's there to do whatever the state wants and whatever the state employees want. You have violent union members that want to see someone done in with drugs. Boom, that's what the psychiatrist is doing. He's ordering it with force. It doesn't. There's all sorts of literature about these drugs and what they do. It's a chemical lobotomy. Inject the person with a little bit of Haldol. Suddenly, you're shutting down nerve pathways, and their memories are getting erased, and they're bouncing up and down their chair from tardive dyskinesia, and they're slowly being damaged in their brain with drug. It's an instantaneous effect too, because A person will lay there tranked up and not even be able to move or think or talk anymore. It's sick. It's what they do in these psych institutions. It's not about treating a mental disease or defect. That is the way they cover it up, is claim a person has that to be able to do it. And there is no verification, there's no medical test done that prove a person has a mental illness or defect. Everyone knows that. You look that up all over the internet. Go to CCHR, go to Mind Freedom. No medical tests. I've got documentaries on my website too. So there's no medical test, and that lets them just label anyone. Boom, once labeled, drugs go in. And they get authorization for forced drugs or forced ECT or forced lobotomies. Or to even justify a staff member assaulting a person. That's what the diagnosis helps with. Because if they have a diagnosis and they don't have it, there's no lawyers there to help them, nobody's looking to watch this shit, boom, staff members are keeping them there, beating them up for 20 years. They'll never get out. That's the way the system works. And guess who, if something goes down, who's going to be the one that has to go? You or the staff? It's going to be you. And that's why they're giving you drugs and they're putting you in the side room all the time. And there's nothing you could do about it, even if they're obviously the ones being violent and doing all this. And that there's no method of being discharged when that's going on. That's going to help them keep you there, in fact. And that keeps the staff protected. No one gets in trouble. No one gets exposed for it. No one from the outside's watching it. So the state has an interest in having this psych institution where they can hurt people. They can do them in and claim whatever they want. And that's what their doctors will do. And I'm hooked up with many patients who claim that's happening to them. That's what they all claim. When you see a person who could live in their own home, but they're there in a hospital, that's what's going on. Okay? And then once they're released from the state hospital, which is a prison, that's what's going on. They have staff on the outside who'll lock them down. If they do anything, boom, back to the state hospital. The staff will also call up the psychiatrist. Oh, we want some. Can you increase the amount of drugs he's on? That's what they do. And that there's requirements that you have to stay on your drugs. But guess what? There's studies out there that show these drugs don't have a therapeutic benefit. For most people. And this is because we weigh the risks and the benefits. The drugs are known to cause serious damage. You'll get bipolar disorder. You'll get depression that doesn't go away. Encephalopathy, vein swelling, fluid buildup around the brain, scar tissue in the brain, movement disorders, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, iatrogenic diseases. So basically anything you do to a human usually causes iatrogenic disease. So if you're giving out treatments with drugs or there's some environmental causes or exposures, they get sick. Okay? And you can induce sickness. And so I've seen people at the state hospital that come in fairly alert. And then after 10 years, the woman's still there. She's been beat to death by the staff. And she's now crapping her pants and can't even speak anymore. And that's a true story. There's a girl there named Monique Green who that happened to. And she's not the only one. You come in, you're healthy, and then they break everything down. You're not healthy, and they're doing it with drugs. They're slowly just kicking everything out of you with drugs. You come in actually able to activate and do work and to think and talk, and you sound intelligent, and then that's lost over time, and it can happen really rapidly. Happened to another friend of mine named a male came in, And I'm watching these 370 patients, and I'm watching how they come in. Some of them have never had an experience in the system, and those are the ones you really gotta pay attention to. So there's this one guy coming, something Bowen, or I've got his name on my website, but he was an older gentleman, didn't have a lot of signs of mental illness. He just had gotten in a fight with somebody, and his wife, total bipolar herself, calls the cops, and he's like a veteran and everything, but he gets sent to the state hospital because he thinks that the sheriffs are abusing him. And it could be true, they do abuse people. That's serious, they're really fucking organized. And they target people. So he gets to the state hospital. He sounds really coherent and smart to me. And he gets in there a little while, and they end up giving him some antidepressants. And then he starts to sound like he can't even talk anymore. And I'm listening to him. He sounds incoherent. And he's not speaking as if I can understand him. And that's within just months. When he had no sign of any communication disorder at all before when I first met him. Okay? But that's what they do in these places. And they're pushing drugs as if they don't do these things. And goddamn, dude. So that's how they do a person in, and after 5 or 10 years, they're no longer able to talk. And they look like a paranoid schizophrenic and lost all their hair. Your hair falls out sometimes. You got all these muscle movement problems. Oh my God. And all they had to do was release you up front, and this wouldn't have happened. And with me, when I got in there, I didn't need to be there. I just needed to, I had a problem with I didn't have school, I didn't have education. I wasn't ready to go to work. That's the only thing. I was 19, abused by my family. They didn't address any of those problems. They didn't give a fuck what my family had done. That they beat me routinely or isolated me for years and kept me out of school. So psychiatry and the state's interest in all that was sabotaging me and drugging me. And not doing anything to address these other problems. Because that's the way the system's set up. It's a prison. It's never been designed to help the person or to respect their liberty or their rights.